Hey, what's up everybody? My name is Isaiah. I am a licensed professional counselor, and today we are diving into a reaction video. Ever since Trump won the election here in 2024, a lot of more conservative commentators on YouTube, especially the Daily Wire people, have been having a good time talking about the liberal response to Kamala Harris's loss. And this video by Brett Cooper especially is poking fun at the way that colleges have responded to the perceived mental health crisis that this election has spurred for a lot of their students. And she's using the opportunity to point out some of the ridiculousness, I guess that she would call it, that's going on in these counseling centers and in these colleges for how they have treated students and how they are encouraging people to cope with this election loss. So I have some thoughts about that. This is just about some of the mental health facets and the institutional facets of how colleges and health centers handle student mental health as a whole. And so there's going to be some points where I might agree with her. There are going to be some points where I might disagree with her. But this is just based on the ideas, not on personality. Obviously, I've watched her channel a little bit, so that's how I came across this video in the first place. But I do get that with the election, with the issues that are very personal for people about mental health, that this is going to bother some people, and you all may agree or disagree with me, and that's totally fine. I want to create this channel as a platform for us to be able to discuss some of those ideas. So please do like and subscribe, and let's dive into it.
So people often come up to me and they ask, Brett, what happened to young people? And it's sometimes people my age who just look around and are like, oh my God, all my peers are crazy. Why am I so different from them? It's also parents who come up to me and go, oh my gosh, what happened to my kids? I thought I raised them right. It's chaos. I mean, we get asked how women moved so far left. How did so many men become so unmasculine and emotional? Where are the strong leaders in these younger generations?
Oh my God, where are all the men?
Well, my friends, they went to college and they had any strength and emotional stability stomped right out of them. And I'm literally not joking. Before we get further into the video, first of all, her presentation style is amazing for YouTube. There is no way that I could keep up with the amount of words that she puts out, and seemingly so smoothly and so rehearsed too. And I don't know if that's a hiring requirement to work at the Daily Wire, because a lot of their other commentators are like that too, just hundreds of words per minute. It's amazing. So impressed by her skills, but I'll also say that, at least in my experience, if you're going to talk about college students being emasculated or not resilient, a lot of that starts a lot earlier than college. So if you want to pin all the blame on liberal colleges, I think that's a little short-sighted. There's a lot of things culturally that feed into that a lot earlier than just, kids are totally fine until they hit college and then suddenly they go crazy. That's not what the issue is in most cases. I won't deny that at colleges there are some opportunities for things to become a little more extreme. That's a time when students are surrounded almost solely by their peers and they're trying on different identities. And so there might be some alarming things that come out of that. A lot of things that maybe we look back on and think like, what the hell was I thinking? But to just blame colleges for that, in my mind, seems a little short-sighted and doesn't include some of the contextual factors that lead into what they do in college. Before we talk about this though, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the comment section channel if you've not already, and of course, ring that notification bell to make sure that you stay up to date on all of our episodes. So
again, this is not me trying to endorse our channel or saying that it's not a good channel. You watch what you watch.
guys, we can talk all day long about the things that these university professors teach, the obvious political biases that the majority of them have, the protests on campus, etc., etc. But really, when you boil it down, in my opinion, the biggest issue with our university system is the emotional coddling, the babying. Like, no wonder we have 30-year-olds that are too scared to get married, thinking that they aren't mature enough or ready enough to have kids. They're like, I can't even have a dog. I just don't even know if I'm ready for that. Paying their bills on time is some kind of like adulting that they expect to get accolades for. Like, colleges used to be where you would go to grow up, to...
Man, okay, so first of all, because she talks so fast, it's really hard to find a spot to pause. But there's an element where she's right. I've talked to a lot of professors. I live in a college town, so I know some of the professors who get frustrated with what we might call laziness. There's an expectation of trying to do the minimal amount of work and still trying to get the best grades possible. And also when we're talking about later stages in life and talking about getting married or living independently, having a pet, those are things that, like, if we're talking about having kids, yeah, you're never fully ready for that until you've been through it and you make yourself ready through the process. And that's going to be a theme that we go through a lot in this video, especially as what Cooper's talking about, is that a lot of times we have this expectation, a lot of my clients have this expectation, is that one day I'll be resilient enough and I just have to be protected until that point when I feel ready. And sometimes, like we talk about with getting married, sharing your life with somebody, having kids, you're never fully ready for that, and it's going through the experience that helps you develop that resilience. So what I tell my clients a lot of time is that resilience is not something that you just, you hit age 26 or 28 or something and suddenly you are resilient and you just need to be protected until then. It's something that you develop with life experience, with failures, with learning what to do when you fail or make mistakes.
Foster independence to be away from your parents and really become an adult, critical thinking, maturity, all of that you got at college. They would get you ready for the real world. But these days, the real world is literally having to get ready for young people because of how unprepared and coddled they've been by their universities. And a perfect example of this is how these universities have handled the election. I mean, even before the votes started rolling in, Georgetown University's School of Public Policy, Georgetown, one of the most esteemed, prestigious universities in the country, announced that they would be offering self-care suites for students for after the election. Literally, self-care suites. New York Post wrote about this. Georgetown University provides self-care suites for coddled students stressed about Election Day, complete with milk and cookies and coloring book.
Okay, so I can see where the headline sounds very infantilizing, and you're talking about college students getting milk and cookies and coloring books. One critique of this entire video that I think will be a theme throughout is that a lot of these headlines, a lot of what she's picking at, ignores some of the larger context. It's very possible that a lot of the counseling centers or health centers at these colleges have already been doing things like this. It's not necessarily like they built these self-care suites just in time for the election or just because of the election. And if you're talking about like how they're allocating resources in terms of self-care, then that might be a different discussion. But I will say one point that I agree with is that even leading up to the election, a lot of what these universities might have inadvertently done is create a lot of anxiety about the election. If you're getting constant emails saying like there will be self-care suites after the election, or if you're feeling stressed, please talk to somebody, and a lot of times that might actually provoke that kind of introspection, like, ooh, am I worried about the election? What if this happens? What if that happens? Am I safe? Is this gonna be okay? And you're being told that this is something that you need to worry about. I can see how a lot of the university programming around the election could inadvertently cause a situation where students are a lot more anxious than they probably would have been because there's so much extra discourse around it. Almost like there's a huge red flag that the university is waving, saying, hey, pay attention to this, pay attention to this. And then that might set off some alarm bells for people that might not have been as concerned about it before.
Georgetown University.
Who you playing with, sweetie?
Amanda.
Oh, who are you?
I'm Amanda.
And remember, guys, these are college students. These are legal adults. They are studying public policy. They are in the School of Public Policy. These are our next politicians, congressional staffers, and they were spending Election Day and the day after in self-care suites.
I think they're a bunch of sissies.
Somebody commented and said, what, no therapy dogs? I mean, guys, it just seems like a missed opportunity, Georgetown. Another person said, that is one expensive daycare facility. That is literally what colleges have become. Another person said, they are supposed to be the future. Jesus Christ on a bike. Yeah. So guys, all of this came out through an article in the Free Press after they were alerted about an email that was sent to Georgetown students. They wrote, in an email to McCourt students, and that is the School of Public Policy at Georgetown, Jacqueline Clevenger, the school's director of student engagement, introduced the school's post-election self-care suite. Quote, in recognition of these stressful times, all McCourt community members are welcome to gather in the third floor commons to take a much needed break, joining us for mindfulness activities and snacks throughout the day.
All right, and looking at this statement, generally I don't have a problem with, like, a lot of times commons and colleges will have different programming going on, whether it's mindfulness or yoga, like that's not super out of the ordinary already. And then snacks throughout the day, like college students are gonna be snacking anyway. So in that sense, it may not be super out of the norm, but again, the specific attention to because of the election, this is what we're doing. And what I would be curious about is how Republican or conservative leaning students reacted to this. Because I think the assumption was Trump's going to win, you all need self-care. And so what kind of message does that send to the students who may have voted Republican or who are leaning in that direction? And what does that say about their culpability maybe in creating this distress for so many of their fellow students? Is it going to be alienating? How do we consider the Republican students' mental health in all of this? And this is not about just like, devil's advocate or playing the other side, whataboutism, but the email does say all McCourt community members. Would Republican students, if they've been more public about their beliefs, have been welcome in some of those spaces? It's hard for me to say what the atmosphere would have been like in terms of welcoming really all community members.
And guys, I just want you to read the schedule of events because I thought that it could not get worse. These are real. 10 a.m. tea, cocoa, and self-care. 11 a.m. Legos station. 12 p.m. healthy treats and healthy habits. 1 p.m. coloring and mindfulness exercises. 2 p.m. milk and cookies. 4 p.m. Legos and coloring. 5 to 6 p.m. snacks and self-guidance.
Condescending tone aside, this is like somebody who wanted to parody what they think therapists do all day, and they put it on a schedule. I think there's something to what she's trying to say in that the School of Public Policy is trying to let up on the pressure on election day. But then as a school, if you're considering yourself like a training ground and a proving ground for future political officials, political actors, then there are going to be times when the pressure is high, like on election day, and you're not going to have a chance to step back. And I can see where, if it's the norm for every time something gets hard for the school to let up, then you have a problem because you don't develop that resiliency. You don't develop that ability to say, okay, things suck right now. I'm going to keep pressing on and I'll process this afterwards, or I just have to get this done right now. You don't have that drive because the pressure lets up every time you start feeling it. And I've watched some of her other videos. I don't think she's anti-mental health. I don't think she's anti-self-care. I don't think she's anti-coping. I think what her problem with this whole thing is that the school is taking on an institutional role and saying, this is how you must feel. Everybody must be devastated by this event, or everyone must be super stressed out by this event. And so we're going to shut down classes for the day, it looks like, because you don't have time to go to classes if you're going to all of this programming, and saying we're going to just have a day off instead. And I can see that if that's institutionally the pattern, that could be very unhelpful for students.
Guided meditation, got Legos and freaking coloring.
7 o'clock, wrestle with my self-loathing. I'm booked.
Listen, I love art. I would be lying if I said that I have not bought a coloring book as an adult to pass the time on an airplane to chill out. You guys know that I am obsessed with cookies. I love chocolate chip cookies. Like, if Trump lost, I would have definitely been drowning my sorrows in a huge plate of homemade cookies. I probably would have gotten in the bathtub. I would have done my skincare, slathered on a little extra of that Amalo tallow, because that always makes me feel good.
Side note, I am always impressed how she leans into and transitions into some of these ads. I don't have that ability. It's always really jarring whenever I do a cut like that. But well done for her on being able to transition well into that. I don't have that ability at this point.
Literally, guys, like, that's my nighttime routine. I get so relaxed. I get so comfortable. That is what I would have done if Trump would have lost. But as reasonable people who are emotionally stable, we do that in our private, personal time.
I think that's the key to what she's talking about. Like I said, I don't think she's anti-mental health or anti-coping. She talked about very upfront, she would have been upset if Trump had lost. She would have eaten cookies, taken a bath, whatever, all her relaxation stuff, skincare routine. But I think the complaint here in this video is that the school is setting the tone for everybody. That what maybe should be something that's privately processed, maybe with a couple of friends, or maybe with the professor if you have that kind of relationship, becomes something that's institutional by the school, mandated by the school. We're not having classes today because you all clearly feel this way, even though maybe nobody specifically asked for it, and this is what we're going to be doing instead. Like she said, in private, she had no problem with anybody doing any of those things probably, but the fact that it was the school saying, this is what we should do today, I think that's the part that she had a problem with.
The Georgetown School of Public Policy should not be facilitating that. They should not be offering that to their students. They should get their students back in class. They should be using this huge historical event as curriculum fodder. They should be talking about why Kamala's campaign failed. What happened? Why did so many people leave the left? They should be talking about why Trump's campaign worked. They should keep moving forward in the betterment and the empowerment of their students. Like this, milk and cookies, that is not it. And
to be fair, we don't know whether Georgetown or any other university that did something like this offered those same kinds of things. I'm sure there were a lot of professors who were ready to get into it with their students, talk about and discuss some of these things. So again, context matters. We're taking maybe what a counseling center suggests, or maybe what Student Life set up, and imagining that the entire college shut down just for that kind of programming. But there could have been professors who sent out an email saying, hey, 400, 300 level students come in, we'll have a special class discussion about the election and what worked and what didn't. Things like that could very well have happened. We just don't know, and we can't assume that they didn't happen just because something else was announced by some other part of the school.
Surprisingly, they were not alone. Libs of TikTok posted this one. University of Washington is offering a safe space to the students to process the election. It includes a pause for pause, petting zoo, craft tables, and a gratitude wall to help with the stress. University of Washington has turned into a daycare, higher education for you. I mean, literally, look at this thing. Pause for pause, petting zoo, craft station, gratitude. Gosh.
You're a baby.
I mean,
So again, nothing wrong with petting zoos per se. Nothing wrong with the gratitude wall per se. My personal problem with this is that schools are providing the emotional answer. So one of the difficulties that I have with some of my clients is that they're expected to be provided the answer. They kind of dump their feelings in front of me, which is a normal part of therapy, right? You share how you're feeling, some of your thoughts and all of that stuff, what's happened to you. And then they kind of sit and wait for me to tell them what to do about it. And a lot of times I have to turn that back on them, and that's super frustrating for a lot of clients because it's like answering a question with a question, but really like, how am I going to tell you how to respond emotionally? I'm not you. I don't know what's best for you. I have some suggestions that maybe research-wise tells us is more likely to be helpful than, say, this other option. But at the end of the day, you have to come up with your emotional answer. And this is what we're talking about with resiliency too. I think there's an expectation that, oh, if I'm told often enough, then I'll figure it out. Or at some point in the future, I'll have it figured out, but I just need you to tell me what to do right now. And that's not the case. Again, we have to make mistakes. We have to try and experiment and sometimes succeed, sometimes fail in order to develop that resiliency and that emotional maturity. It doesn't come just from getting older. It comes because being older usually comes with more life experience. And that's why a lot of times I refuse to tell my clients what they should do with the situation, but I will ask them further questions to guide them through and figure out what's important to them in this situation and how they want to handle it and how they want to handle the challenges that come with the course of action that they've decided.
Here's another. This was posted by one of the Missouri State University schools. In anticipation of the coming week, which might be stressful for students, the Counseling Center will offer the following: partnering with Maggers Health and Wellness to provide a self-care, no-phone zone, safe space on Election Day. Students will be offered self-care activities such as calm jars, coloring pages, and sensory fidgets.
Okay. Yeah, I don't like this one. So first of all, like a no phone zone space, that's very wordy. I think that should be more common in schools generally, just a no phone space. I think that would cut out a lot of ambient stress just by itself. But let's talk about some of the research into first of all, I don't know what calm jars are, but coloring pages, yes, if you talk about mindful coloring, there's some research for that. Fidgets have no research backing. So now you're just kind of throwing like therapy or self-care adjacent stuff at a wall. And it really does seem kind of performative because you're not even looking at research-wise what's actually going to be helpful for people dealing with election-based anxiety. You are putting more of a spotlight on it and saying this is something you need to watch out for, which might heighten the sense of fear and alarm and anxiety in students, and then not providing actually helpful tools for them to be able to deal with it. So a lot of this does come off as rather disingenuous and creating a problem and not providing a super helpful solution. And a lot of it probably does sound like a parody or some kind of joke to people on the outside.
Calm jars, sensory fidgets. These are adults at a university. I mean, no wonder Kamala lost. Like, these are the kids that Liz and Dick Cheney wanted to send to war, and they are sitting at their universities with fidget spinners. Come on. Now, guys, that was just in preparation for this election. This was all put out there before Trump had even begun to win. Because on Wednesday morning, emails and posts started flooding in from schools and professors all over the country, canceling classes so that students and professors could grieve. At Ohio University, for example, one professor sent this email. Hi, all. I've decided to cancel class today to give space to those who are devastated by the election results. I have already interacted with students who are hurting badly, who are scared, who are tired, who are unsure of how to go on. For those of you who are sad, scared, traumatized, angry, please know that you are not alone. Please take time to take care of yourself, to find small joys, to hold close the people who matter to you. And then she'll be in her office if you want to chat.
For a professor to be aware of some of the needs of their students, I have no problems with that. To acknowledge some of that, but then also to cancel class on the expectation that the majority of your students are feeling that way, I think could be unhelpful for students and schools alike. Again, I think it's just a situation where it's well-intentioned, but maybe it goes too far in almost dictating how students should be feeling and how they should respond to it. I think all of those suggestions in isolation are not bad suggestions. I think the professor is well-intentioned. I think all of the professors who maybe took steps like that are well-intentioned. But again, that idea of providing the emotional answer is something that I just can't get on board with.
They don't know how to go on. The way you go on is that you simply just do. The world keeps spinning. Life keeps moving. You're either on the train or off the train, and all of these students are obviously off the train. As another example, an MSU professor sent her students this. Quote, as a queer immigrant woman of color, I cannot just go on, and her classes were canceled. And in the email, she says that she's taking the day off to grieve. And this one, in my opinion, is even worse because she's not doing it for her students. She's doing it for herself. The adult that is in the room that is supposed to be teaching them, molding, guiding these students, literally cannot get herself together enough to show up for her students. Somebody commented and said, teachers are supposed to set an example. No wonder why this new generation are soft AF. This is exactly how we get white dudes for Harris. Be a grown-up, get your ass up to work. WTF is going on. Another person said, this is why young people can't deal with any sort of adversity in life.
Not super excited about the tone of some of these tweets and comments, but I will say that, again, this is a lesson that I think on both sides of the aisle need to be learned, that resiliency doesn't come from just out of nowhere. It needs to be developed over time. And that's why parenting, childhood, and experiences in schools are so important for that time for students from a young age to learn what it means to persevere, what it means to be resilient. And it doesn't mean shutting out your feelings and just soldiering on. And it also doesn't mean giving in to all of your feelings and dwelling in those. I think one of the more difficult parts of the school's responses to all of these is that, like I talked about in a previous video, a lot of times when we're surrounded by people who are too like-minded is that we can often fall into a confirmation, cycle where everyone's telling you, yeah, you're right to feel this way, you should feel this way. And that actually perpetuates the feeling that we might be trying to move away from or be trying to incorporate and assimilate, and instead it becomes a bigger thing that we sink into even deeper.
Which is spot on. Because this victim mentality, this weakness, it is not just born inbred. It is literally cultivated over years and years of this coddling. So parents, if you're sitting at home and you're like, oh my gosh, what happened? If your kids are off at college and you wonder why they've come home different, maybe less stable, less secure, less independent, less conservative, this is probably why. It is the victimhood. It's the coddling mentality that is literally everywhere. These schools are not producing highly functioning, productive adults, and they're not even hiding it. They're totally open about it. In fact, it is something that is celebrated, that people look to as good and positive, that's helping these students. But thankfully, there is a beacon of hope. Because look at what Hillsdale University posted. This is the one university that takes absolutely no money from the government. They said, our post-election plan for students, classes. We are holding classes as usual. I mean, they're doing exactly what they should be doing. That should not be controversial in the slightest. Keeping students engaged, busy, productive, and thoughtful, molding and shaping them into critical thinkers and productive members of society. It is.
Yeah, I actually know a couple of people who went to Hillsdale, and they're great people. So yeah, absolutely. I can see what Cooper's talking about in that, like, the schools don't have to legislate for their students what they're supposed to do. Like in college, if I felt like not going to a class, I just skipped it with the expectation of knowing that I would have to make up the work, I'd be behind, but that would be my choice to do that. And then again, you just kind of weigh the benefits and consequences of that. If I needed the day off or if I wanted to take a break to do something, then yeah, I have my responsibilities to the class as well to keep up with. But again, that's giving the students the option instead of saying this is how you must respond to that.
Shocking that they have become the weird ones.
So I'll say again, I think context matters. We're not getting the full picture of what's going on at these colleges. I think there are a lot of headlines there that go for shock value and try to make it seem as bad as possible. I think there's a lot of well-intentioned people in these health centers and in the schools that are trying to be aware of the potential needs of students, but are maybe overreaching in terms of how much programming they're trying to do, how much preventative work they're trying to do, when in fact that might be creating more of a problem than they're actually fixing. And again, I would really encourage counselors who are on staff at colleges or administration who are on staff at colleges responsible for student well-being to follow research in terms of how do we actually support students, how do we best guide and support students in becoming better citizens, better students, better people overall. And to avoid some of the really obvious low-hanging stereotypical fruit like fidgets and coloring books. Again, like If you do that privately and it works for you, great. But there might be some better avenues that we can explore on the university level that might take some more commitment, that might take some more investment, but it would be well worth it for the students who are going to be going through some of these experiences and developing more as a result. So again, thank you all so much for watching this video. Like I said, it could be controversial, there could be a live discussion in the comments. I do welcome that kind of feedback, so please comment below what your thoughts are on some of these programs at universities and what your experience has been with those kinds of programs if you have some experience. What are your thoughts on how schools, how students might be handling the election and the fallout of that? Again, please do like and subscribe. Thanks so much for watching this video. I'll see you all next time.